It's Wednesday, April 24th. Just giving everybody 30 days notice.
29th of Omer.
Today's 29th November. Giving everybody 30 days notice. A month from today is my birthday, May 24th. I prefer cash. It's good to see Ari here. And, of course, always see Barney. It's my secular birthday. I was born twice.
I know another guy who was born twice.
Right. The last guy who was born twice, he's hanging with some nails stuck in him. Anyway, so I think because we have two people who weren't here yesterday, I'm just going to do a quick review of what we did yesterday, and then we'll go into today's shiur, a short one. Yesterday we spoke about that a Kohen. Everybody knows what a Kohen is? You know what a Kohen is, Barney?
Uh-huh.
You sure?
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name Baruch David Lachunded Kohen.
A Kohen. So we got a Kohen here. We got over here Binyamin ben Yaakov ben Ezra. We have somebody who's got a similar name to the first Kohen ever on the planet, Ari, Aaron a Kohen, and of course we have our Kohen wannabe, Tuvia Ben. What's your father's name?
My father's name, Yitzhak.
Yitzhak. And your mother, Yocheved?
Yocheved.
Just Yocheved alone?
Just Yocheved, yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, a Kohen is not allowed to be contaminated. In the times of the temple, a Kohen had to perform services. He had to eat certain holy foods, which were given to him as part of a tithing process, which either the Yisrael, the regular Jew, gave, or even the Levi gave him, because a person would have to give 10% to the Levi, and then the Levi would have to give from that to the Kohen.
10%.
It's 10%. So anyway, all these things had to be eaten while you were in a pure state, and he was not allowed to defile himself, contaminate himself, especially with a dead corpse, or is that redundant, dead corpse? Very few living corpses, right?
Every now and then.
Every now and then you see one, right? The night of the living dead. Anyway, so yesterday we asked the question. Yesterday we asked the question, as we know, that you can be contaminated with a corpse in one of three ways. Either by touching it, or by carrying it, even though you're not touching it, or by being in an enclosure where a dead person is inside, which is called tumas oel, a tumas of a tent, but not necessarily a tent. Anything. Oh, we have another Kohen just walked in. Boy, we're being bombarded by Kohanim.
50%.
I'll have to go for my Kohen license. I don't want to feel left out. Anyway,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if it's in a different room, just
okay. So hold your question. Benny seems to have always the knack of asking exactly the question which is appropriate for the shiur, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Very good. So yesterday we talked about in a case of where a Kohen is in a room and there's another guy sleeping there, and in the middle of the night this other guy dies. So, and this man is sleeping in the raw, and he wakes up in the middle of the night, or somebody wakes him up and tells him, and he finds out, and he becomes aware that there's a dead person in the room. Is he allowed to take the time to get dressed and run out, or does he have to run out naked into the street, because he can't stay in that room for 1 second longer, because every second that he's in that room, he is violating a biblical. Everything we're talking about today is basically biblical. It's a biblical negative commandment of not to contaminate himself. So we went through that yesterday, and today I'm going to ask a different question. And maybe we'll get back to that because it's sort of connected. Today, is Benny or Barney or Lenny allowed to go to visit someone in the hospital?
That's what I was going to ask.
Because inevitably somewhere in that hospital there is a dead person. And now he's in the same enclosure as a dead person. Is he allowed to go visiting somebody? Visiting somebody is a mitzvah. Is he allowed to violate the negative commandment of being in the same enclosure of a dead person to perform this mitzvah? Now, I'm not going to ask right now, and don't tell me, Benny, I'm not going to ask you right now whether you'd go visiting somebody or not. But this is something that we're going to talk about. Now, but there is even a more severe question we can ask. Is Benny allowed to go to the hospital himself? God forbid, he's not feeling well, his heart is racing. Is he allowed to go into the hospital to get himself checked out? For himself. Is he allowed to go to get a procedure? You know, as you can tell, Benny has had several hair transplants already. You know, is he allowed to go into the hospital to get a hair transplant?
Looks good. Looks like a animal.
You know, yeah. So now, of course, we're not talking about in a situation where it's life-threatening. God forbid, you know, if a Cohen, we're not going to use Benny, we're going to use Mr. John Doe, Kohen John Doe. Is he allowed to go? He was in a car accident. He's bleeding to death. Are you allowed to take him to the hospital? The answer is unequivocally, without a doubt. Tuvia?
Yes.
As usual, he's exactly right. Now, by the way, in general, when we're because that's called skanat nefashot. Your life is in danger, and when your life is in danger, as we know, you can violate every single one of the 613 mitzvahs, with the exception of how many?
3.
3. There are 3 you can't violate.
You can't have a different God.
Can't go to a Roma cafe. I mean, you can't. What are you going to say?
You can't have a different. You can't like go to maybe like in a hospital they have a chapel. You can't go in.
No. We're talking. No, I'm asking a different question. If your life is in danger, you can violate every law in the Torah. There are 3 of them that you can't violate. There are 3 things that you may not violate. You have to let yourself get killed. It's the famous 3, and one of them is worshiping another idol. If somebody comes to you and points a gun to your head, says, "I'll blow your head off," if you don't worship an idol, you have to let yourself get killed. Or if somebody, like Benny says, if somebody comes over to you and says, "If you don't kill this guy, I'm going to kill you," you have to let yourself get killed. Because as the Gemara says, who says your blood is redder than his blood? In other words, who says you're more worth than this guy? So you can't kill somebody. And by the way, for that matter, if somebody comes over to you and says, if you don't kill this person, I will kill every Jew in this town. You still can't kill that person. And if he says, I'm going to kill every single Jew on the planet, you still can't kill that person. Because taking a life, killing one person is like killing the whole nation. And saving one person's life is like saving the whole world.
So that's very tough, because during the Holocaust, they could have said, if you don't kill somebody, I'm going to kill your wife and your daughters and your children.
Of course it's very tough.
Crazy dude in Iran. I mean, what's his name? Arzamadad, the guy.
Right.
I would kill him myself. They're telling me I can't.
Well, you're allowed to kill somebody who's going to kill somebody. In fact, you have to kill somebody. If you know somebody's going to kill somebody, you better kill him.
I want to kill this guy.
And the third thing is committing adultery. If somebody says to you, if you don't sleep with this person's wife, I'm going to kill you.
Somebody's wife, not everybody.
A married woman. Then you have to kill him. Anyway, we're getting off subject. So, with the exception of these 3, if your life is in danger, you may violate. In fact, not only may you, it's a mitzvah. If God forbid somebody is ill, life is in danger, it's a mitzvah for you to get into your car and drive him on Shabbos or do anything else.
That's why the Hatzalah, they could hire a Goyish driver on Shabbos. They don't hire.
Right.
They hire religious people to drive
that's
the
right.
ambulance.
A Jewish ambulance driver drives somebody's in trouble. They drive him to the hospital. Now, not only is he allowed to drive him to the hospital, he's allowed to drive back by himself.
Because
Why?
next one.
To be there for the next one, God forbid. Anyway, so we're not talking about where his life is in danger. And by the way, we're not when we use the term somebody's life is in danger, we don't necessarily mean that it's imminently in danger. For example, if somebody is bleeding, and he's profusely bleeding, he's not going to die right away. But if you don't do anything about it, he may eventually bleed out. It may take a week, whatever it is. Anything that could possibly lead to loss of life is considered like your life is in danger also. Okay, so we're not talking about such a case. But in general, is a Kohen allowed to go into a hospital for something that is not life-threatening? And again, is a Kohen allowed to go into a hospital to visit a sick person? And because inevitably, as we said, that there is a corpse over there. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be a corpse. If, God forbid, somebody's limb is amputated, a part of a person is considered just like a corpse. So, and for sure, somewhere in the hospital, somebody had some kind of a surgery where, unfortunately, one of his limbs may have been removed, or for that matter, a fetus. Somebody had a miscarriage or something. Those you find out. So there's all kinds of things going on in the hospital. Of course, there's a morgue, and there's unfortunately people there also. So, are you allowed to go in? Now, the Rambam says that the following, because somebody raised this question yesterday. Somebody raised this business of a Kohen not being able to be contaminated with a dead person. Does it apply if the corpse is not Jewish, if it's a Gentile corpse? And I said yes. I was 2/3 of the way correct. A Gentile corpse will contaminate a Kohen by touching it and by carrying it. But according to most Rishonim, especially the Rambam, in fact the Shulchan Aruch also says that you cannot be contaminated being in the same room with him. You have to have contact either with him or with something that he's laying on or sitting on. So now,
this is any corpse or a goyish corpse?
I'm saying no. If it's a Jewish corpse, if a Jewish corpse is in the room, you don't have to be next to it even. As long as you're in the same enclosure, you're contaminated.
But Mendy, my mom did hospital in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Definitely, there's the Jewish.
Okay, so, but so in Maimonides Hospital, this is problematic, even according to the Rambam. But even in Maimonides Hospital, most patients are Jewish. But I'm willing to bet most corpses are not Jewish. Because who comes in to who are the ones that come in on an emergency basis that are life-threatening? People with gunshot wounds and people whose wives and husbands have killed each other, and drunks and drug addicts. Those are the ones that overdose and everything. So even Maimonides Hospital, in fact, I'm going to make a call to the chaplain. Maimonides Hospital is a very good friend of mine, Rabbi Friedlander, and I'm going to ask him the statistics of the corpses itself. But let's put Maimonides Hospital, which is a unique hospital. In general, in most hospitals, most of the patients are not Jewish, and we can rely on the fact, according to the Rambam, that even if there is a corpse there, it's probably not Jewish, and therefore, since you weren't in contact with them, even though you were in the same enclosure, you're not.
So another room also considered Ohel, right? That's what? So you're saying in another room, or even though they're in a box, sealed, or somewhere
right.
in a freezer or somewhere?
Right, even if it's in the same room.
Not the same room.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says that he asked the question. The Shulchan Aruch wants to know if you're allowed to go to a Gentile cemetery. Are you allowed to go to? I had this problem. I was in Israel, and I was walking back from the Kotel, and there was a Christian cemetery there. And right at the entranceway of the Christian cemetery, I see a big sign. It says Oskar Schindler grave.
He's buried in a Goyish cemetery?
He was Goyish.
I know, but
he's Goyish. So I wanted to go see it. So I went in to the cemetery, and it didn't take me 5 seconds from the thousands of graves there to realize which one was Oskar Schindler's. Anybody has been there over here? No? His graves, they put rocks also on the graves. Thousands of rocks were on that grave. I have pictures of it. I'll bring it in.
What's the reason they put rocks? I know. I've seen it.
Because it's like putting a matzeva, Anyway, we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So the Shulchan Aruch says that you should try to avoid going into a Gentile cemetery, which from this we see that if you don't have to go there, don't go. So certainly from this we can learn out that it's not so biblically speaking, it's not so harsh to contaminate yourself when there is a Gentile corpse there. So according to this, of course, if you want to go visit somebody in the hospital to do a mitzvah, we don't have to be concerned so much that there is a Gentile corpse there. Certainly if you have to have a procedure done, even though it's not life-threatening, but to get yourself better, that you would be allowed to go. Now, but you should try not to go. So if you're going to certain museums and have mummies there or something, you should. It's no mitzvah to go there because you should try to at least avoid being in the
pyramid.
Right. Now, okay, I'm gonna fast forward because any second now we're gonna stop. The shach. I'm gonna give you 2 more reasons why you are allowed to go. Let me just quickly, because Benny asked me what is the rule today. So I'm going to give you the answer what the rule is today in a minute. The shach says that an interesting thing that when we asked, he brings down the wording of the question that we asked yesterday, that if a Kohen is sleeping and there is a corpse in that room, is he allowed to get dressed or does he have to run out without getting dressed? So the Shach brings down from this. The Shach was a very famous commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. He was the father-in-law of the Taz, which was also a great commentary. And no, the Shach wasn't there. I'm sorry, the Bach was. But anyway, so he says he is every word that's written is written with intention, and because it says if there is a corpse in that room, from here he says that the only time you get contaminated with a corpse if there's a corpse in that room. That means if it's in a different room, although it's in the same building, you're not contaminated. So according to this, of course you can get it because the chances are that you're not going to go into a room where there is a dead person. So even though you walk into the hospital, there may be corpses in the morgue, there may be in the laboratory, in the pathology department. What?
They did put that one line in there in that room. Do you know how many naked goings will be running around every couple of minutes?
Right. Exactly. So according to this, for sure, a Kohen would be allowed to go. Now, getting back to the question of whether you have to, when you wake up this Kohen, how you should wake him up. Should you wake him up and tell him, sir, just come out of the room for a minute. He'll automatically get dressed and go out of the room. And then when he gets out of the room, you tell him...
Because he doesn't know it's okay?
Because he doesn't know. Or do you have to tell him, hey, there's a dead person here, run. Forget your pants, run. So actually, we don't have a conclusive ruling on this. And what I was able to come up with is that it's pretty much optional. It's your option to either tell him or not to tell him.
Like you said,
And either way you have on what to rely on that you're doing the right thing. Now the Ravid was also a Rishon. He took issue with the Rambam many times, and he says that in these days, this whole thing biblically doesn't apply. That it's only midrabanim, it's only a rabbinical thing. Kahanim today do not have the biblical commandment of not contaminating themselves.
Because they are.
And therefore, when it's for a mitzvah, to be mevakar chola, or in the case of where for human dignity, that he shouldn't run out naked, or to go in to have a procedure, in all those cases, he would be allowed to do it because, according to the strict biblical law, he is not violating any commandment.
Because it's a tameh anyway.
All right. Have a good day.